Hi, Chris Hamby here, Collage of Health. The Collage of Health is a business that I put together that provides education on different types of dimensional health areas in our lives, not just the mental, spiritual, and the physical, but also things like the social, the financial, occupational, environmental. And I would love to put together a series of videos, which I'm doing starting today, about different things that I've learned on my path towards wellness. And I would love to educate people and to provide some coaching rather than tell people what to do. So this is all educational. Everything that I've learned on my path, nurse practitioner, nurse, psychiatric, mental health, herbalism, Ayurveda, yoga, meditation over the last, I don't know, you could say 40 years. So 40 plus years. So I thought what I'd do today is just talk a little bit about herbs and what I learned on my path with herbs. It basically started in 2008 when I was a student of Stephanie Ross's at Drexel University. There was a program that I entered into, which it was a complementary and integrative therapies program. And Stephanie is a legend. I mean, she just really knows a lot about herbs, supplements, and she was a pioneer in that forum in the United States. And one of the things that she said was it was really important to look at what was called good manufacturing practices. And did companies follow the GMP protocols to get that stamp of approval? And basically what GMP is quality control, looking at farm to um, tincture, so to speak, or pill, and who touched the herb, when was it packed, how was the farm laid out, how did the kitchen look, or the institutional building of, did it follow the quality control concerns, who handled the herb, etc. So there are companies that have this stamp of approval, one of which is Mountain Rose Herbs. And so that really, to me, is a reputable source that I use to get my herbs. They're organic, they're kosher, and this is not an ad for their company. I just wanted to mention GMP because a lot of people aren't really aware of that. Flash forward 10 years, I went to Herbal School here in Asheville. I went to the Blue Ridge School of Herbal Medicine. Corey Pine, who runs the school, is a legend here in Asheville, and he's long time herbalist and very, very knowledgeable individual. And it was a really interesting experience. And what I found the most helpful about the experience was the field trips that we took, where we were really immersed in being out in nature. We were tent camping in the rain. We went on herbal walks, and we learned from a myriad of experiences and people about herbs. And that's really what I recommend for anyone who's starting out or just is a beginner, to play, to get out there, to just examine what you have in your backyard, in your community, your neighborhood. You don't necessarily have to pick anything. I don't recommend that you do unless you know what you're doing. But just to really immerse yourself in going to different nurseries and things like that, just to get a feel of what's out there. As you do that, herbs will start to come to you. People who work in herbalism really believe that they have their own spirit, they have their own personalities, they have their own the genre has its own life form, and certain herbs vibe with people, and certain herbs don't, and it's really specific to the relationship you have with the herb. So that's something you can start to cultivate as a new herbie. One of the first things that Corey Pine taught us was there were three different ways and levels of taking herbs. There were tonics, things that were safe to take every day. And overall, the mint family is a very safe family, the Laminaceae family. So things like herbal teas, mint teas are pretty safe to take on a daily basis. Then there were herbs that were more appropriate for acute situations, like elderberry and echinacea, and things that you might take if you're sick with a cold. And then there was a third category of herbs called heroics, and things that you don't want to take unless you really, really need to take them. And you have to look at risk benefits, and you should be working with an herbalist, a really trained herbalist, before you venture into these heroic herbs, because there is a toxic threshold that occurs when they're at a higher dosage. When we speak of herbs, we also need to take into consideration what's called a menstruum, or the carrier that brings the herb into you. Most herbs you don't want to eat, without some kind of menstruum. So going back to the situation of an herbal tea, you could take it in water. You could have, you know, it brewed. If you brew it just for a couple of minutes, it could be what's called a tassane, which is just a regular tea. But if you brew it for a longer period of time, it'll bring out the medicine. So it's more of a tonic. A good example is lemon balm. Lemon balm has a nervine anxiolytic quality to it, where it can calm you down. It can maybe help you sleep at night, or it could help anxiety. So this is a pretty safe herb to take in a tea form if you have some anxiety. Then you're looking at something like tinctures, that tinctures. Um, and the menstruum for tinctures might be something like a high grade of vodka, depending on the herb and how you want to extract it. Could be brandy, could be vinegar, something like that, or glycerin. This one is a rose glycerin. And I actually added a little brandy just to um, extend the half-life, because alcohol can extend the life of an herb in a tincture form longer than like vinegar or a glycerin can. So that is a rose glycerin, and I used rose from Mountain Rose Herbs, and I don't find rose that expensive. I mean, it's going up in price, but really it's just such a beautiful herb. It's just such a heart-opening herb, and you can safely buy it from Mountain Rose Herbs. You can add it to your teas. You're doing a mint tea, you could add a little rose petals, and it really just kind of bumps up the taste. I made this tincture. It's hard to see on this video. I made this tincture, and it's just delicious. The life of this is probably about a year. I'm coming up on a year, so I'm gonna have to use it up. And it's just absolutely delicious. I could actually add it. I don't do that very often, but I could add it to a tea that I made, and it would just sweeten a little bit with glycerin. You can also make an herb uh, potency, or well, not, it wouldn't really increase its potency, but you can use honey. So sometimes you could do like elderberry syrup or something like that with honey. And honey is antimicrobial, so it can help the herb, live or be safe over a period of time. I'm not speaking so well right now, but hopefully you get the gist of what I'm saying. If you decide to venture into herbalism, I would recommend and, start to use more not only culinary herbs, which we're pretty familiar with, things like oregano, basil, thyme. But if you venture into the medicinal herb forum, I recommend that you get your herbs through a reputable GMP certified site before you go and wildcraft out in nature. Or, buy some herb or buy some plants in your yard where you can just go out in your yard, know what they are, and safely pick them. And lemon balm's a great thing to plant. It spreads. Again, it has like an anti-anxiety component to it. I have a hawthorn tree in my backyard, and hawthorn is a beautiful plant. It's got little prickers on it, but the berries you can use for I'm drawing a blank. The berries are used for you can use them in a tea or a tincture, and they can help with anxiety and heart wounds, like where you have these heartaches and breakups and things like that. So I haven't ever used the why I hesitate is I haven't worked with the berries yet. I think you have to maybe make sure they're cooked first. So I'm gonna have to actually look into how to, once I cultivate them, what to do with them. So I have chaseberry too. I have a chaseberry tree, and that helps with hormones, female hormones. It's also called Vitex. It's doing incredibly well. It's this big tree that's growing actually in a pot right now. Lemon verbena is another one that helps with anxiety and stress. It's mild nervine that's growing in my front yard. So playing with plants, buying these plants, St. John's wort I have growing, which can help with depression. We're all pretty familiar with that. And that can be used in a myriad of ways. It can be pill, or it could be, you could put it in a tea or a tincture. So there's a lot of ways that you can cultivate St. John's wort. And of course, it's a plant where there can be some interactions with other drugs. It actually induces, it helps the body eliminate other drugs. So that's one of the dangers with St. John's wort is if you're taking some heavy duty meds, it could help clear the meds from your system. It helps clear the liver. And of course, if you're on an antidepressant, that could cause too much of a good thing, so to speak, and serotonin issues can arise. So just know what you're doing when you are taking, plants, and really do your research. There's so many books out there. Maybe another video, I'll get into ones that I would recommend. So if you decide that you are going to be brave and wildcraft, go out into nature and just start to pick plants, really ask permission from plants, if you can pick them. Are they a rare plant that you really want to not touch, just to let grow? And Corey Pine always said, don't pick the first thing. If you only see one of something, leave it alone. Another thing that you really need to be careful of when you go out and you wildcraft is you have to know the regulations. So there's state regs for state parks, and national forested parks also have regulations. So know the regs before you go out and pick, because you could be breaking the law if you just go and randomly picking different things that are out there. Know the lookalikes too. Hemlock is a very poisonous plant. It actually does grow in Western North Carolina. It can be mistaken for things like wild carrot. So be really careful um, with your wild crafting, and know what you're doing. I think that was pretty much all I wanted to say today. I just wanted to venture into herbs. I guess I'll just lastly conclude that, there are things like poison ivy out there. And it in itself has its own medicine. It's certainly not to be taken internally. I don't mean it that way, but the medicine of boundaries. And when it's so going back to 2018, when I was in Herbal School, there was a woman, I'll call her Linda. And Linda seemed to get into, this was what she told us, she used to get into bad relationships that were toxic, people who really didn't treat her well. And she wanted to kind of get out of that paradigm. And she was caught in this web of this cycle of getting in relationships that ended up going bad at the end. And in the beginning of school, she got poison ivy. She head to toe, she had poison ivy, and she never really was able to get rid of it. For 6 months of school, she had, poison ivy. And she really came to appreciate it. She appreciated that it was helping her stay away from relationships because she had it on her face and she really didn't feel pretty and didn't really want to seek a partnership through school. And we learned from one of our teachers, Abby, that it was known as Sister Ivy, and Sister Ivy helps us to create boundaries when they're missing. And I have noticed I've had quite a few bouts throughout my life of recent, not too many, of Sister Ivy coming to me in the way of a terrible rash. And I just always kind of just sit with it when I've gotten it since school and say to myself, what boundaries do I need to cultivate in my life that I'm not cultivating? And how is Sister Ivy, Poison Ivy, helping me with this? So I think those are the words I'll close with. Thanks for listening, and subscribe if you want more of this kind of content. If you want me to speak on anything specifically that you're interested in, I would be glad to. So just put it in the comments. Thank you.